want to bring your dog, you're welcome to.
Yeah, no,
good dogs are welcome. So, what are you thinking about for a dose? Are you looking forward to a dose? Have you been thinking about dosing?
And for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my last relationship with the mushroom at 1.5 grams was nice. Not having it in the form of a tea was definitely a little different. Coming back to it without adding lemon juice, etc. I don't know. I think probably 2.5 to 5. Kind of work up a little bit of a comfort. But I really want to get to the point where I'm going into those like therapeutic, like 6, 8 ranges.
Yeah. I mean, I had some hellacious 5-gram doses myself. One of my first, oh shit, I had this 1 5-gram dose. The first time it got really fucking wonky. I thought that I was laying in my bed and I thought that I was so convinced that my hands were swelling, like my left hand was swelling in particular. And I was freaking out, man. And I went down to ask my ex-wife. She's in the basement smoking a cigarette. And I was looking at my hands and seeing them getting bigger and smaller. And like, this is all bad. What the fuck is going on? My left hand is just swelling. And, I was like asking her to look at it. She's like, no, you're fine. I'm just like convinced that I'm dying. Something's totally wrong. She used to be like, why the fuck do you do this to yourself, man? Why do you keep doing this shit? I'm just like, I don't know. Why not? Because I'm learning something somehow.
It's crazy too, because like at the end of that, like what you're saying that you're learning, you probably did come to find something that was like triggering this like whole, deep down, that you're okay. You've been in this space for,
No, I didn't know I was okay. I thought I was really fucked up. No, I thought I was really. This was when I first really started doing like the 5 grams in silent darkness, and I was like, "This is all bad. I have definitely fucked something up here." And even now, as I talk about that and I connect some of my other experiences in this kind of left hand phenomenon, it is making more sense to me now, like what was going on there. Of course, Courtney's the first one to comment. I see there's a few people on Instagram. I don't know if anybody's actually watching or not. This is my first live event, so if you just pass through and it shows you up, then I don't know. But for those who are listening on Instagram, I can't hear you. I can't deal with it. But if you want to comment and get involved in the conversation, then we can bring you into it through Facebook or YouTube Live or the LinkedIn page. So I just want to be available on Instagram as well. Got a pretty cool platform here that's streaming to multiple, I guess a cool program that's streaming to multiple platforms, but not Instagram. So anyway, so have you not had a holy shit, I'm dying, this is all bad, I've broken something yet?
I had a moment where I ate an entire container of strawberries, and yeah, don't know what I was thinking.
You ate an entire container of strawberries?
Well, yeah, in the mushroom space, and then I start like feeling like sick, and then forgot that I ate these strawberries, and so like I'm walking up the stairs to my apartment. Luckily, it was outdoor stairs, and I just regurgitate all of these, and it's red, and
Yeah.
so no clue that I had ate these strawberries, and I'm like, I'm dying. This is it. Like
Oh,
internally bleeding.
Yeah.
This is, and at that point, it starts to come on a little quicker. I remember just getting down in like a 3-point stance, just being like, all right, I know I have to clean this up or else my partner is going to kill me. There's nothing like red stains everywhere.
So when did you realize that you weren't puking out blood and it was just the strawberries you ate?
I recently watched the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and so I tried to channel my inner Aang. I knew that I was going to be okay once it came to me that I ate the strawberries. But yeah, I mean, my head was spinning, my world was evolving and just revolving, and it was wild.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go ahead and ask you one of my first questions for you. So like Ram Dass speaks about coming to the mushroom space from a what is it, like a slightly cold room, lights out, darkness, and to just like sit with it, lay with it in this utter darkness. How do you feel about that model versus just maybe being outside at night with it, or being outside at day with it?
I mean, they've all got their kind of unique flavor, you know. I used to be so into Terrence McKenna and the Ram Dass thing that I was very dogmatic about the silent darkness, you know, like it has to be done this way, and like that's cool. There's definitely good things that come out of that, but there's also really good things that come out of being immersed in nature. I mean, I see Seth. So a little bit of back and forth here. Seth / Socrates just commented on there. This is a beautiful soul who was in Jamaica, and we had 3 really good experiences together, but the one in particular where we were just outside midday, moderate dose, and it was just fucking beautiful. And he was like Socrates. He became this like font of wisdom that just sat there and shared so much comical and deep wisdom. And like there were like buzzards drifting in the breeze overhead, and the coconut palms were blowing, and everybody was just, it was like, there's just something about when you have like 15 people tripping in a yard in the daytime, and like 3 people over here doing their thing, 3 people here, 3 people, and it's like just little pockets of madness, you know, that when it's contained and you know it's good and everybody's just doing their own thing, then you can just like sit back and smile into it and love it. Yeah. No, Seth, that was great. Seth, you want to come into this conversation? I think so. Tristan, if you want to start posting the link for people to hop in the conversation, we can do that, and then I'll just bring people in as they come and work with it. So everybody knows this is a first go. You know, there will be some kinks to work out, but I'm all about it. So, yeah, no, Seth, that was a beautiful day. I'd love to reflect on that with you if you have time to. If you're interested in that, just click that link and it'll hop you in, and I'll let you in the room. There's somebody there. So there's this fruit called an aki. Oh no, what's even better is there was a solar panel hanging in the tree for these LED lights, and this girl's like, I walk over and she's like got the solar panel, and she like thinks it's like a video game, like she's like controlling, I don't know what, the weather or the universe or something, but she was just like playing with this thing, and There it comes. What's up, Seth? Bring up. What's up, Seth?
Hey, what's up? Not much,
Dude.
man. I apologize for my hair. I had a hat on earlier. So.
I apologize for my hair. I don't have any.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we all can't look as sharp as Tristan. So
that's right. That's right. What's good with you, man?
So much. Just major life changes, big move, career changes. All of it. Sort of guided by insights from psilocybin. And other sources too, of course. Mm-hmm, but I've been sticking with it, and it's been a very meaningful part of my life.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Well, that was a very meaningful week for you, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that kind of culmination in that last day. There was just something. Honor and I talk quite a bit about that still. She's here in Louisville and is part of the church, and it's so like there's so many amazing experiences in how they continue to be reflected on and impact your day-to-day life. You like reconsider what all that meant, and it's like so like what's your relationship looking like with psilocybin now? If you want to share, I mean, this obviously is a live thing.
I'm happy to. Psychedelics in general, psilocybin in particular, which I found. I've been experimenting with different psychedelics, but psilocybin I come back to as the best teacher, I think. My experience. That experience we had in Jamaica, that third session, was the most affirming experience of my life. And I found that I actually haven't made it back there with psilocybin yet, but I've made it. I've been able to make it back there in my ordinary life.
Okay.
Sort of like, psilocybin provided the map that, with integration, I was able to sort of go backwards and find that trail again. And it's been really a very positive part of my life. But since then, in the past year, I've been, maybe every 3 months, doing a session. And just a recent experience I'll share with you. Last Monday, I had an experience that was at the time probably what you would call in quotes the worst experience I'd ever had. I mean, the most painful, the most negative. But later in that day, as I was coming out of it, and I flipped it around, I didn't have somebody with me that I could do integration with, so I experimented with some self integration, and I tell you, as down and deep as I went into the sort of painful abyss, during the session, the insight I got out of that was extremely powerful, and it had an extremely positive effect on the rest of my week. And it allowed me to clarify things. I'm shifting careers right now. So there's a lot of like, what are my values? What's my purpose? What's the meaning? And I was able to clarify so much of that after that session. So that's a recent experience I've had.
So what was the discomfort or the painfulness, was that connected to the outcome at all? Or was that, do you have a way to contextualize what that was all about?
Well, I was, and I don't know how much you would recommend this, or I probably wouldn't recommend this, but I was alone. And other people can talk about their experiences with that. Maybe it's not something I'd probably recommend based on my experiences, but I was sort of flooded with every negative narrative I have about myself all at once, in a way that I've gotten stronger with those things. I'm able to push them, but they just all became real to me. It was a cascade. But what the psilocybin was, especially towards the end of the session, was allowing me to do is, I'm alone here. I have to take responsibility for confronting these things. I can't go to my wife. I can't go to a friend and say, help me through this, which with my experience with psychedelics, I get very social. You saw that in Jamaica. I like to bounce things off people as they're coming to me. And this was, you have to work on this yourself. And over the course of the day, you know, it's not like the psilocybin was telling me those things. I mean, they were coming from me, but it was putting me in a space where I had to gather the resources myself to confront those narratives. And I don't think without the psilocybin I would have been able to gather those tools for myself. I would have run off and you know, talk to somebody else or do some reality checking with my wife. And this was just, it created a space for me that I could not only, you know, confront those narratives, which were very destructive and have been destructive throughout my life, but also clarified values for me. And because I struggle, I have core values, but I tend to adopt other people's values and make them my own. And really for the first time in a long time, this past week, I have really felt that my central values, particularly purpose and meaning, was affirmed as like, those are legitimate values. I can spend my life pursuing purpose and meaning. And that's what it means to be human for me. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's beautiful. That's not only is there nothing wrong with it, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. So, so I did some sort of integration later in the week with a therapist that I see, based on those insights. And, it's just been, yeah, it's really helped me a lot with the transitions that I'm going through right now.
Man, that's incredible to hear that you've just been keeping up with it. But if we could, I'd love to kind of go back to this thing of dosing alone. You know, that's something that's really kind of a big thing to think about. Is that the first time you've ever done that?
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I've done that. Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like you were consciously like, okay, I'm at a level of proficiency now that I can dose by myself, or was it just circumstantial?
It was partially circumstantial. I mean, I think a year ago I would never have done it. The circumstance, I would have preferred probably to have other people there, but it just felt like the right time. I was dealing with some stuff and I thought, okay, today's the day I'm going to do this. It's the right day for this. And I feel comfortable enough with it that I can do it alone. It was scary. You know, it was definitely scary. Like, you really have to know yourself, I think, and know your relationship to it. And like I said, it's not something I recommend.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like,
unless you have that self-knowledge going in.
Yeah, it's the self-knowledge aspect, because what you're saying, those solo doses are almost like invariably where it gets really scary. You know, it's like if you got somebody there, whether they're tripping or not, to tell you it's okay, then like it's reassuring. Or even if you just see them there, and then it's like there's the kind of container that's built in from having somebody there. And so when you are by yourself, you get confronted with these feelings and sensations and thoughts and all this stuff that like, and nobody's there to tell you, and it can spiral really, really quickly. But there is so much value in doing a solo dose, because all the stuff that you just talked about, like that, you know, we are, hopefully we all have, you know, family, friends, community that we can lean on in life, but ultimately, like, nobody's packing our bags but us. You know, we've got to be the ones that deal with it all. So that lesson is incredibly valuable. And I do think that once people get to a certain level of proficiency, that dosing solo is really a very good thing to do. And then there's also the whole, like, nobody's watching me, as in when you get to, it can be really challenging to let go and go into the experience fully when you know that there's somebody there. Because even at like really high doses, like you start writhing and twitching and talking weird stuff, and like that, there's an aspect of your ego that is always there and is thinking like, what's this person thinking of me? You know, did you find that to be the case, that you could dive into the experience more readily without somebody there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm with other people, you know, that, like you said, I mean, that part of your ego is there, you know, that can, you know, I mean, I've had obviously extremely powerful experiences with other people, but just to remove that one component, that sense of self-consciousness, of other people's presence, definitely added a lot of value to the experience.
Yeah. What kind of dose were you working with?
8.
Oh, nice. Okay. A big one then.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant. Is that, do you find, like, is that like a sweet spot for you, or do you have any?
Okay. Yeah. That's primarily, that's a little lower than what I did the third session in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And it's just what I've gotten my hands on, since I've, started doing it again. And I find that, that works, and dosing is something I want to experiment with a little more in the future, but, that's what I had, and that's what I've had in the past. And it definitely works. I mean, it's definitely productive for me.
Nice. Yeah. Wow. That's so awesome to hear that you keep up with it, man.
Yeah. I mean, and like after the sessions in Jamaica, I knew I had to keep incorporating this. And every time I do, I always go in thinking, is this going to work? Is this going to have a beneficial effect? I'm always skeptical going in. And then, the weeks afterward, I'm drawing so much from the experience, and the knowledge, self-knowledge, and just so many positive things coming from the experience. Whether it's a quote unquote bad trip or a quote unquote amazing trip, I mean, it doesn't matter. Yes. there are lessons there that are just awesome.
Do you talk about these regularly with your therapist?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I other people who, if there are people, listening who, don't have a lot of experience, like, I mean, I know it's sort of weird to bring up with your therapist. My therapist is pretty open-minded about it, which is good. Mm-hmm. But without that kind of integration, without, having someone to bounce those ideas off, that's just invaluable for me.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Well, what you said was really interesting. How did you say it? How did you say it that you haven't been able to go back to that same place you went on your second dose in Jamaica? What you said was the second dose?
Yeah.
Third dose. Okay, so you said you haven't been able to go back there through the mushroom, but you've been able to go back there through your daily life, which is far more important and more valuable than being able to go back there through the mushroom. So I'd love to hear, how you did that or how you tracked that.
Well, one of the therapists down in Jamaica was sort of comparing it to, once you've been to Disneyland, you can go there and the way to get there. Mm-hmm. So when I was, when I had that incredibly profound experience in the third session in Jamaica, I sort of started leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. On the path, as I was coming out of that experience, and the next day, as I was reflecting on it, this sort of the logic of the trip. And I know, it's sort of weird to think of trips in terms of logic, but the kind of, the things that were made. I mean, that was and just to clarify, that third session was the most affirming experience I've had in my life. I mean, I'm someone who deals with deep insecurities, and that was just total, pure affirmation of my value, my worth, my position as a human being. Everything was just like, well, I think you said to me, like, I think you're realizing how awesome you are.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things you said to me.
Yeah.
And so just those, when I say the logic of the trip, I mean like those phrases, those affirmations, the feelings that I had, the feeling that this is true, that this is real. The psilocybin was sort of teaching me how to have those feelings. So when I say trail of breadcrumbs, like, how did I feel in my gut when I felt those affirmations? How did I, what was I doing with my body? One of the things I kept doing was this, through the whole experience. This is sort of unique to me, but when I do find myself in a space where, you know, I really need that kind of affirmative experience. Just going back to the body language, you know, of the trip gets me back in that mindset a little bit. And just remembering the phrase and the things that I was telling myself during that session that I was genuinely believing, falling back on that, just, you know, any little breadcrumbs you can pull out of a really positive session, an affirming session. You can make those part of your everyday life without the mushrooms. Because like I said, I haven't been back there with psilocybin. I've been a bunch of other really amazing places. But yeah, and every time I try to, you know, pick out those breadcrumbs. You know, I try not to be too self-conscious because, you know, it's all about the experience. I'm not like taking notes through the whole experience, but afterwards, you know, during the integration experience, it is about gathering those breadcrumbs so that, you know, whatever you're learning, whatever you're going through, you can get back to that in your everyday life.
You know what I feel like I noticed about you just through your Facebook posts, and there are not a lot of people whose stuff that I actually pay attention to, but I feel like you have a very analytical but playfully positive perspective on things. You know, it seems like you.
Oh, it's very nice.
You know, it seems like you're like, okay, here's some shit that's going on, but here's a way of looking at it, and you know, I don't know, man. I just feel like, and I don't know if that's always been the case. Has that been something that's evolved? I feel like maybe I've seen you kind of evolve a little bit more over time, but it's always hard to tell from this, you know, social media standpoint.
Sure. No. Oh yeah. I mean, I think my approach to the world, knowledge, my approach to spirituality, my approach to analysis, and you know, I'm a very intellectual person, so my approach to that has gotten a lot more playful. You know, that the big lesson for me of that third session in Jamaica was life is fun. Life is about having fun. I mean, that's, you know, Aristotle says the goal of life is happiness. That's the purpose of what it means to be human. And for me, a good access route to that is fun, play. And so I do think if you have noticed me, you know, sort of evolving towards a more playful approach to whatever I'm talking about, you know, however whatever it is I'm talking about on Facebook, I would say like the spiritual developments I've had in my life since Jamaica and, you know, and the psychedelic experiences I've had since then are a huge part of that. In teaching me to, you know, to approach things more playfully and try to find the fun in them.
So what would you say your definition of spirituality is then, or how do you understand spirituality at this point?
You know, for me, it's I would say the big thing that's changed is, and this is just me personally, but I have a religious affiliation that really emphasizes like the whole body and the senses. So I go to a church where you're standing up and you bow and you smell incense and you see these beautiful pictures everywhere. It's an Orthodox Christian church. And in everyday life, spirituality, it has to be, you know, it's not like you have the body and then you have the spirit and you just engage with the spirit. It's got to be physical. You know, you got to be engaging with things physically to experience them spiritually. That's a lesson that I've learned. Maybe some people disagree with that and have different approaches to spirituality, but for me personally, like, you know, my relationship with God is one that's, you know, it involves my whole body. So I have to be accepting of my body, which is something that's been very difficult in my life. And it involves, you know, beautiful pictures. It involves beautiful smells, beautiful tastes. It's very earthy. That's the way of putting it. It's gotten a lot more earthy. Which, you know, mushrooms therefore are a sort of natural way.
Yeah, that's funny. That's very, very much in line with the conversation we were just having on Sunday at the sanctuary meeting. We were talking about this, like, spirituality necessarily must be within the body because we're here in this body and we're here experiencing all of, you know, God's glory, if you will, through our senses. And even in I mean, something that I keep trying to talk about this because it's been so profound, is the lessons that the mushrooms have taught me about using my body as an energetic spiritual tool in this work, not just in helping myself, but in helping other people. You know, there's this concept of moving energy or whatever, and we are, and if you, I hesitate to say like portals or vortexes, but we actually are. And I've experienced this so many times. And I even have this picture behind me is a Taoist kind of metaphorical illustration of the energetic flow through the microcosmic orbit of the human system. And like that, there has to be a place where the invisible and the visible come into contact, you know, this interface of the spirit and the material, and like separating these two out is a disservice to both sides of the self.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Dualism is something that I think has sort of been, and maybe not everyone experiences it this way, but for me, it's been sort of a poisonous part of my life in the past. And so I'm sort of operating in a post-dualist human experience, you know, for the past few years. And that's really been very good for my health, my spiritual health, my physical health, you know, everything.
Do you have people within your spiritual community that you're able to talk about your mushroom experiences with?
Yeah, I keep it pretty private. It's sort of taboo, you know, within my larger religious community.
Yeah.
But you know, once I get very close to somebody, yeah, it comes up for sure. And you know, my tradition is 2,000 years old. You know, in the Middle Ages, Orthodox Christians were using herbal medicine primarily, and they were, in Russia and Eastern Europe and other places like that, they were, you know, there's documentation like they were using psychedelics, you know, and using plants that produce different states of mind, and that was a way of accessing the divine for them. So
100%.
It's there in the tradition.
I don't know if I was given the presentations in Jamaica when you were there around the psychedelic roots of Christianity, but there are so many images from, you know, the 9th, 10th up to 12th, 13th century of Jesus surrounded by mushrooms. There's one really amazing, for me anyway, it's pretty profound. It's a 12th century, I think it's a mosaic of the transfiguration of Christ, like when he's in the garden, I think it's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he becomes like divine in front of the apostles, right? In this mosaic, he has like 3 big mushrooms coming out from behind him.
Oh, that's awesome. I haven't seen that one, but it's funny because the church that I entered this tradition through was literally called the Transfiguration. And I mean, that whole experience, you know, when you read about it in the Gospels, for the apostles anyway, that's a totally psychedelic experience. Yeah. I mean, it rhymes with psychedelic spirituality. And that's how I interpret it, is through the psychedelic. Yeah. So that's cool. You weren't teaching that class when I was down there, but we had a conversation about it. So
I wonder how, I'm kind of curious, like, and maybe you can offer some insight into this, or it may be something just to kind of sit on and think about, but, you know, I wonder how sanctuary could help other, I say other, but not that sanctuary is necessarily a Christian church, but could help Christian churches understand just what you're saying. And I feel like that we do have the potential to really kind of in a bit of a neutral place present information that may help people come to understand that not only is psilocybin not bad for you, but this is a intrinsic part of, I hesitate to say all, but I do think all spiritual traditions have psychedelic roots.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I feel that's got to be true. You know, I mean, I've read histories that suggest that, and you know, there are psychedelic dimensions to so many, you know, of these profound divine experiences that people in the past have had. I think that, yeah, that's something I'll meditate on a little bit and get back to you about. But I think that, you know, one thing a lot of Christians do struggle with is this sort of, in the last 500 years, we've had this dualistic concept of the self, you know, where you have the soul and the spirit is one thing and the body is another thing. And a lot of Western Christianity has really bought into that. So like, you know, sort of showing that there's 1,500 years of Christian teaching that actually goes against that. That's the body and the soul are, you know, linked up, and it's linked to the rest of creation. And, you know, and, you know, when you have a psychedelic experience, it's not just, it comes from something physical like mushrooms. That's really, you know, yeah.
You know, man, I have not thought about that, but I've kind of said multiple times that, you know, when people say like, you know, psychedelics are cheating.
Yeah, I hear that.
I've said and still feel very strongly that it actually exhibits an enormous amount of humility to go to the plants, to say, I don't know. I can't get there on my own. Please, plants, will you help me? But what you're saying in being able to like fully acknowledge that that physical container is a vessel for this spiritual transcendence illustrates the inextricable nature of both. That's fucking great, man. Wow.
Yeah. And I think churches like the Catholic tradition, the Orthodox tradition, you know, they take the physical very seriously. Like they bless physical objects. There's spiritual water, there's spiritual incense and all these other things. So the idea of accessing the spiritual through a plant really rhymes with a lot of things they're already doing. You know, I mean, the idea of eating bread and wine and having that be the most central, profound spiritual experience you have at church. I mean, that's you're eating something physical that has a deep spiritual dimension to it. And I think, you know, approaching plants that way makes a lot, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and there is the distinct possibility that the Catholic communion is a remnant of some kind of psychedelic
sure, yeah, I've heard
experience. Don't know. Makes sense anyway. What's up, Tristan?
Nothing. I wanted to jump in here real
Please,
quick and kind of ask you about how you walk the line of bringing this up with your therapist. Obviously, there's a huge link between these medicines and therapy, but you know, we still have a ways to go in so many respects, in education and then just the societal aspects. So for people who aren't necessarily talking about their relationships with these plants in therapy settings, and they are therapeutic, how would you encourage someone to kind of walk those uncharted waters?
Well, I have three suggestions. I think that the first is, I mean, I'm lucky enough now to have a therapist who is really interested in like the therapeutic use of cannabis and things like that, which is becoming very mainstream. So it's just, you know, an extra step from there to talk about psilocybin. And he was already familiar with some of the literature. So if you're lucky enough to have it, the first step would be, if you're lucky enough to have a therapist who's open to it, you can talk freely with that therapist. If it's something, if you get the vibe that your therapist is, or your psychiatrist or whatever is kind of familiar that this is a thing that's out there, one thing I would recommend is, you know, sending them literature. They'll, you know, a good therapist will read something if you send them something. And I usually rely on New Yorker articles and New York Times articles by Michael Pollan and, you know, people who are very mainstream. And I'm like, look, this is what they've said, and here's the experience I've had. And even if the therapist is, you know, has some reservations about it, they'll generally be open enough, especially, with the research you can present to them, to say, okay, so what did you learn from this, and let's deal with that. The third suggestion would be, if you have a therapist who seems very closed off to it, bring what you've learned from psilocybin to the therapy session and just work with that. That's not ideal, it's not optimal, but you can still, psilocybin provides you with so much raw material to talk about. That's a great starting point for the therapy session, even if you don't feel comfortable revealing to your therapist, oh, I was tripping and that's when I learned all this stuff. So just gauge where you're at with the therapist. But I would say, if you can be totally honest about the fact that you're learning these things on psilocybin, do it. Definitely do it. And if they seem a little hesitant, just go to the New Yorker, go to NewYorkTimes.com, search psilocybin. There's some great articles there, and that present it in a very accessible way. And they will, if they're curious, they'll read those articles, and even if they're not totally convinced, it does open their minds a little bit, and that gives you the freedom then to talk about what you've learned on psilocybin.
Beautiful.
Well put.
Beautiful.
Well put.
Man, it's really nice. Like I said, just seeing that you've continued on this, and to know that it's continuing to benefit you in very obvious ways. Yeah,
it's
awesome.
Been great.
Awesome, Seth. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna keep up with you. And feel free to spread the word. We're doing good work here in Kentucky now. It's a lot more accessible to people.
Yeah.
Moving into Oregon, looks like, and hopefully into Texas. Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I look forward to visiting your church at some point. I love Louisville, and I have family in Nashville, and I'd love to come check, visit at some point.
Oh yeah, man. You're always welcome here. And so, Tristan is a little context for Tristan. He moved to Louisville, a couple weeks, Tristan? Maybe a month now, has it been?
3-ish weeks. Yeah, around a month, probably.
He left his ambitions of medical school to come and work for the mushroom, because he saw.
Oh wow, cool, man.
Yeah, it's still so mind-blowing to me that there are actually therapists, psychiatrists, medical doctors out there that question whether or not there is benefit to psychedelics. There's so much, obviously we live in a bubble. That's all we hear all day long is how great psychedelics are. But it's so anyway, love getting the chat with you, Seth. I'm going to just holler at if anybody on Instagram feed, just so you all know, if you want to join the conversation, you can. Tristan, if you haven't, would you post the link in the Instagram feed so that people can hop into the conversation? And I will, like I said, let people in and out as needs. If anybody, and you can hang on for a minute, Seth, if you want. If there's somebody that's interested in asking you a question, this is not the Eric show. This is everybody talking about psilocybin as much as we can. Just keep it somewhat orderly.
Well, I feel like I've talked a lot. If anyone has a question, I can answer it in chat. But I feel like I should probably pop off the video, let somebody else pop on and have these conversations with you guys. But I plan to check on Mondays too. So if you think of something during the week, you can always get back in touch next Monday, or if I'm not here next Monday, the Monday after that. I love talking about this stuff. So very
awesome.
Fun,
well, maybe we get you as maybe we could get you as a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely. I would love that. That would be a lot of fun.
Okay.
That would be
okay. Well, I'll definitely follow up with you on that, and we can schedule something there.
Cool.
All right. Awesome.
I'm going to hop off the video right now. Yeah, love to you guys too. Bye.
Peace. Man, there are so many incredible people that I have met, and I wish that I had pictures of everybody because just can't remember them. I mean, I see Seth often on Facebook, but talking with him reminded me of his retreat. He was actually on, obviously, I guess you could tell, he was on the same retreat with Honor, who, she was on our podcast, so she's totally fine with outing herself as a psychedelic experiencer. Man, so many great people.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see people that have worked in the therapeutic space, like the retreats in Jamaica years ago, and then how that they've maintained their relationship, as well as what this new relationship looks like with psilocybin outside of them going to Jamaica.
Well, that's the thing, is that if you will continue to engage with it, then it will continue to grow and blossom. This is not something. Yes, there's a lot of value in a single experience that can be a life-changing event, but there's also a lot of value in continuing to grow and develop through that practice. It can become a lifestyle practice, and that's, I hesitate to say should, but seems obviously from many examples that you've encountered already, that's definitely a place that it holds.
Oh, it takes me back to something that Athena said, where she talked about like being able to clean out the closet and kind of do some housework, like within yourself. And man, that holds so very true. Just that initial moment of entering and transitioning into that space, it's definitely a moment to check back in with yourself, because ultimately that's what it is. So since the last time have I been living up to the messages and the teachings that I ultimately felt that I needed in my last experience?
Yeah, well, which, it's a big part of what Seth was sharing there, is how he's been able to go there without the mushroom. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, right? I mean, psilocybin says, you don't need me, at the end of the day. I mean, and Kevin's been a great illustration of that, just continuing to learn and grow through the experiences. It's something that I feel like I didn't do incredibly well in the early days. Excuse me. And probably a lot of that had to do with not having any community or a therapist or any kind of integration. I was just taking mushrooms and having these crazy experiences, and then like not knowing what the hell to do with it. So there's so much value in being able to, talk it out with someone who will just listen and provide feedback,
Oh, for sure. And that the essence of what you're saying just takes me to kind of some of those brain scan images that they've done with meditation and then psilocybin use. And the overlap is so much more than what just the normal functioning, not meditating brain is.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Who else we got? Anybody else want to jump in on this conversation? I see several comments coming through there on the Instagram and Facebook, etc. Please, anybody wants to jump in and talk psilocybin, get on psilocybin with us. I'd love to hear from you. I can talk all day, all night. I'm going to go until probably no longer than 8:30, but as long as it's staying interesting and staying fun, I'm here. This is something we're going to be doing every Monday for the foreseeable future. So if this is a way for you just to get comfortable with it, but Tristan's posting the link there around for folks. If you want to just, all you got to do is click that link. It'll bring you into the room, and then I will let you in and let you share your experiences, ask questions, just talk shrooms with us. Before Seth got on, I was about to tell a story of one of my death experiences that you reminded me of. I don't know, Tristan, and please, anybody that wants to get in, just hop in. This story, I can tell it later. We can finish it, whatever. But I don't know if anybody's heard the, I believe, urban legend of if you're tripping too hard, drink milk and it will bring you down. Yo, Kevin, what's up, buddy?
What's up, guys?
Hey.
This is different. I like it.
This is different.
Yeah, man. Seth got a lot of, I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Seth, by the way.
Yeah, Seth, another incredible mic of not.
He had me tripping over here. I was like, I can visualize all that. Yeah, man.
Where are you at?
It's at the house.
No, I mean in your head. Where's your head at?
My head's always up, man. It's like when I get on this right here, it takes me to a different place. Because you know my story. I mean, I could share it over and over and over again. But remember this podcast? What I've realized at church. Remember the podcast when I was talking about my story?
Mm-hmm.
That it took 14 years to tell somebody. I told you.
Mm-hmm.
I told it again and again and again and again. And I think the last time I told it was the only time I didn't get worked up about it, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
And that's a process. I think for me, that's the process of truly letting go and owning my story. Because it took me, I hid that story from everyone. My parents still don't know. They don't need to know. They're too old. But it's one of those things where my journey into the mushroom was a little wild. And, everybody's like, I think the last time I took a dose by myself, we know the result. So I think I'm still hesitant on dosing by myself.
Remind me what happened when you dosed by, if you want to. You don't have to, but remind me what happened.
Oh, it's just I was in the military, and
that was the last time you dosed by yourself. I was thinking you had dosed in Texas by yourself a couple times.
No, I've dosed a few times, but it's always a group, and it's my recreational military group, ex-military.
Yeah. Well, if anybody is interested in Kevin's last solo dose, go check out the "It's Okay to Be Human" podcast episode from Psilocybin Says. Yeah, that's one worth listening to.
It was an interesting one.
So, how do you're dosing with vets down there when you do?
Oh, at home, yeah, it's friends.
Yeah, but they're vets.
Yeah. That's okay. My circle's ex-military.
What are you seeing coming out of that for them? Anything?
Well, it depends. It's because I'm the serious one, and I'm the one that dives. I sit still and I dive into it, and they try to move around. And I tell them, come sit with me, and they come sit with me, and they get lost in my trip. And then they start talking about shit that's on their mind, and then they break down. Mm-hmm. Not in a bad way, but in a vulnerable way that they weren't ready for. And they give me shit, and they blame me for it. And I'm like, you're welcome. And my last buddy, he liked to compete. So he knew I did 12 in Jamaica a few years back. So he wanted to do 10. He's never done a double-digit dose. And I warned him, I'm like, hey, man, just be careful doing that. And sure enough, it basically put him, for me, when I did 12, I go basically catatonic in a way. There's no moving around. I gotta sit. I gotta lay with it, sit with it. And so did he on 10. So it was interesting. And he was never a serious one about mushrooms. He wanted to take them. He enjoyed having a good time. I'm like, all right. I'm like, man, double digits, a little different story. He's like, we'll see. I'm like, okay. He got to see his father's sick. He got to see his father die over and over and over and over again in multiple different ways. And then he got to see creation, which whatever it was to him, but he'll never forget it. And it made him think about his wife, his kid differently. He took life more seriously when it came to everything. And I always tell people, man, you can get anything from these mushrooms. You just have to know what you want. If you go in not knowing, you might get something that looks scary, but it's not actually scary. It's a message. Mine at the beginning were always terrifying, and I didn't know why. And the last time I've done them, it was terrifying. And now I know why. Because there's a lot of things I didn't let go of in my mind. And that one was the sense of control, like controlling everything around me. And now it's just like I control what's in my mind, and that's about all I have control of. And I enjoy that. It's less work, man. It's interesting because I never have a day off from my mind. And I like it. It's always different. I'm always evolving. I'm always looking forward. And I'm never really looking back. And I don't look like so forward where I get lost in the future. I don't do that either. I just like this moment, man. Every moment's beautiful when I wake up. And I couldn't have said that 3 years ago.
No, I remember when we first met. You're a fucking million miles away from where you were when we first met. Million miles.
And it feels like a long, long time ago, and it really wasn't. It was 36 months ago.
Damn. That was your first retreat, was 3 years ago?
Yeah, 2018.
Damn.
Give or
Wow.
take.
When was the last time you did a dose? It wasn't in Jamaica, was it?
No, when I got home. It's probably
your trips in Jamaica, man. Every now and then I just think about those last trips. that last one you had there. It's like, fuck.
No, it was like, okay, but first, real quick, the first retreat was 3-8-12. And I'm like, okay, I use that weird mentality of, okay, I can stay there. So after about a year, a little over a year of just true introspection, like no bullshit, 7 months of hard work with my mind, like hard. I wanted to quit. And that's why I kept always messaging y'all little things just to remind myself, it's good. You're good. You're fine. Mm-hmm. But 7 months of not really understanding why I'm alive, it took me a while to get back from that 12 to be back to myself. And that's why I tell people, man, if you space out your doses, if you have a big dose, give it time to breathe and to unfold. And when I did that, so it was about over a year, I go back, I'm like, I can just start at 5 because 3, 8, 12, 5 is a good medium. Hell no. Because I did 5 and I was back to 12 mode. So I was like, okay, we're gonna go down to 4. And this is where it gets interesting with psilocybin. It tricked me because I had a beautiful trip. I've never had a happy, just go lucky, laughing trip. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I was like, last dose, third dose, we're gonna do 4 again and have the same trip. My 4 was stronger than my 5 and it was about equal to my 12. And I couldn't get away from it. And I was trying to run from it. I was trying so hard. And I just let go of that. And then that's when everything, I don't know, man. It's hard to describe that. A gazebo was powerful. It was a powerful spot.
I mean, that's one of the things that I love most about this. We talk about dose and we're like, oh, I did this or I'm going to do that. And like Seth was saying, that 8's his sweet spot. And it doesn't matter. The dose doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. And the more you think you know what it's going to be like, the more you think you know how it's going to go, the more of a chance there is for it to just come at you sideways and knock you off your feet.
Yes, that's one. I think about a year ago, a little over a year ago, probably less than a year. I did that. I did a 6, and it was on. I shouldn't have done that because that's when my buddy did his 10, and we were right next to each other, and we both. I basically got locked into his trip with whatever he was doing, and I just couldn't get off the couch. And it was an interesting trip because that was more. The world opened up to me on that one. We were in the house, but there was no roof on that house. I saw every constellation you can imagine, every planet, whether that's my mind or whatever it was. I was free. I was free. And so after that trip, more introspection came in, as you could tell. I kicked it in a little more gear, went back to see y'all, Kentucky. That kicked me. That was a trip right there. That podcast, I was full mode. But you can trip without mushrooms. And I did on that. It was just through human interaction and share.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the interesting thing about this is it's almost like there's been so many times that I've come out of a mushroom trip that was like a gram of mushrooms. I took like a gram or a half gram, and 6 hours later I'm just blasted, and I come out of it saying this shit's a placebo. It's all placebo effect, and I know that's not 100% true, but there's some truth to that. Like we convince ourselves. Yeah, that makes sense, Tristan. Sorry, Tristan has messaged me and let me know that Instagram can't hear the guests. Duh, of course they can't. I got y'all on headphones. Sorry, Instagram. My mistake. I'll figure it out for next time. But,
Yeah, man.
So much of it is just the mind,
Yeah. It's the mind, the body, whatever you want, whatever makes you, and on this plane, you can call yourself you, all matters. That's what I'm slowly figuring out. and I want to be, and I guess my mind's been lighter since I've been with y'all a lot, like tons. So that's why we got into that. Well, let's make everything lighter. Let's make our body lighter to match our spirit and our mind. And I'm finding different levels of myself just in doing that. And I'm at the level now to where I want to see where I can go with this. With my, haven't had a calling for mushrooms for myself to where I need to get back in there. I'm still trying to figure things out right now. And it's interesting because I always thought I would go back to the mushroom like monthly or every 3 months or whatever. And I don't want to. I've been offered plenty of times. Like, a lot of people want to journey with me. I'm just like, I'll watch you. I've offered that so many times, but I don't know. Nothing negative. Yeah. I don't feel like I need them right now, but I love them. That's the thing. I love what they help me do, and that's understand me.
Well, that's
yeah.
As you say, that's one of the most beautiful things about them is that they, like, we I hesitate to say we don't need them, but we don't need them. You know, like they're always there, but there's not this pull towards it. It's not something that we are compelled to do. And for those that listen to it, they go to it when it's time, you know, not when you're like forcing yourself to do it. I've had some really deep experiential understanding that whenever we take mushrooms is exactly when we're supposed to. There is no choosing like, oh, okay, I think that I'm choosing to take mushrooms now. No, you took mushrooms because it's your time to take mushrooms. You entered into this space and you helped process this information for the collective because this is your time to carry that. And you can't force yourself into it. It just has to happen on its own accord.
Yeah, that's what I love about them. And I mean, it's just not just that's the knowledge it's either the knowledge they give you or the knowledge they just wipe away whatever bullshit was in front of it. It's like right there. You've already known it. You were just too busy with everything else to see it. That's where I really try to tell people there's so much power in our minds that if we just sit with it and really think about it and go through whatever you have to go through. I'm not saying it's easy. It's because it's not. When I explain things, people think it's so easy for me. I'm like, no, I repeat this over and over again in my mind in the mirror. I record myself. This is part of my therapy. I record everything I think and I play it back. And if I still have the same thought, then okay, I'll give it a listen. If I just listen to it, I'm like, you're bitching about nothing. Why? It's been really therapeutic for me. That's something I've done. A lot of the mirror talking, looking in the mirror and actually watching yourself talk. Like, dude, that's anger. Why is there anger? It's hate. Why is there hate? And I've went to so many different things with people and we've talked about, I mean, I can talk about this for hours. And the main thing is there's a lot of times we'll just start talking about stuff and, you know, we'll talk about hate, but then we'll spit hate onto the hate. I'm like, so no matter what the context of it or how pretty you make it sound, hate's still hate. Regardless of you going against someone that's hateful, if you got to be careful doing that because then all of a sudden you're in your own little bubble, or own little trap. And I try not to go there. That's why I like to stick to that. I get it. And I have an understanding. I'm not intellectual by any means when it comes to saying an intellectual. I do understand almost everything that I encounter, and I get it of any human reaction I've ever seen in my life. Before, no, it was all like, you're ignorant, you're dumb. No, now I get why humans act the way they do. Because I put myself there the best I can. And that's hard for people to do. And that's the beauty of this is my favorite part of mushrooms is the human experience. It's not the trip, because right now my reality is better than any trip I've ever been on. I could never have said that before, ever.
Word. Yeah, I love the mirror talk, man, because it's all mirror. That's all the mushroom is a mirror. It's all mirroring who we are. I'm gonna bring Warren in here and see what Warren's got to say for us.
All right, buddy.
Love you, Kevin.
Love y'all too. Bye.
Warren G,
Hey,
what
how
up?
y'all?
What's up, brother?
Hey, not much. Just trying to make my camera work, but I'm struggling here with it. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I like this Monday chat. I've had problems joining the Sunday uh, uh, sanctuary meetings because I'm over in Europe right now, and it's like here where I'm at, it's 4 o'clock, and
Yeah.
by that time I've got all that shit, family and stuff going. But just want to say thank you, and definitely this. I like the way that Eric, you're branching out and providing things like this to where you're um, connecting with people and offering various ways to connect. So I just was looking on Facebook and hey, wow, okay, for me, it's late over here, but I just got off work, and so I thought, hey, okay, I'll tune in.
Yeah, man, I love it. That's what it's all about. Trying to find just different ways to connect with people. I totally understand that there are plenty of people that don't get or connect with the religious aspect, the church aspect of mushrooms, of psilocybin, and just want to have a place where people can just talk anything about psilocybin. There's so much to explore here, right? I mean, if we think about it, like obviously the health and wellness that we've been talking about, but if we want to think about global impact, social impact, how we work with mushrooms and like in business sense or cultivation, there's so much to explore, and really want to just provide a place for people to talk about whatever it is around psilocybin. There's so many people out there talking about psilocybin and presenting themselves as these like experts on psilocybin and have no actual experience with psilocybin. And I want to credit you and thank you, because you are one of the people who in the last couple of months has helped me realize, more and more that like I got value to add. I got value to share with people, and that's really what it's all about. So thanks for coming in. You got any mushroom experiences or any thoughts around the mushrooms that you'd like to share with the listeners or with me?
I wish I had more to share. I've been doing some like just microdosing, and not really getting a whole lot of like powerful experiences, unfortunately. Just kind of been in like too much of work mode. And we came over, let's see, we left Louisville in November and traveled out to see my family in Salt Lake City. And then we traveled over to Europe, where my wife is from. So we've been over here in Spain, and now we're in Portugal.
Okay.
For the last couple of months. And I'm just, I'm definitely like wanting more access. I don't have access to the mushroom right now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's here, just like in most places. It's just, finding that connection. And I didn't really think ahead and plan well enough to like, all right, get up to Amsterdam and make sure you got some good supply. I actually was able to bring some over and just some micro dosing type of things.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's kind of, I'm in a drought. Next month we'll be up in northern France, and I'm going to head up to the Netherlands and get some good product there. And of course you probably know what that is, right? It's the
truffles.
Yeah, the truffles,
Mm-hmm.
which I've used, tried a little bit. I think they're good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just jonesing, waiting, hoping to get there and get back on, sort of a little bit better spiritual path. I mean, I've got no complaints. I'm doing fine.
What do you feel like you're getting out of the microdosing?
I do feel like it's supporting the research in sort of, some neural connections that might not have been there. Just a more holistic, well-rounded way to relax and to have good creative thoughts. And for me, that's been real good. Yes, I do need to go in deeper and take get a higher dose going, and that's going to yield dividends. But I really appreciated what you and Kevin were saying about how, it's kind of like you don't necessarily, the goal is to not necessarily kind of need them because they're doing their job and everything like that. So I've got good equilibrium, and you and I have talked before a little bit about pairing this kind of thing with wisdom and knowledge, and the light of the spirit is in my life, so I don't really have to make any major detours as far as that goes. I kind of see it both together. The mushroom is a tool, it's a resource. It allows us to connect to the source. And for me, I just need that to be more consistent as a tool, because we've got all these other tools that are available, like alcohol and stuff like that, and we all know that ain't that great. It's kind of okay, but as far as something that really is spiritually connecting, it probably does as much harm as good. And what I love about this movement, this religion, and I've got no qualms at all about saying that this is a faith, this is a religion, this is a way of connecting with the Almighty. Those things have been prevented from us, from society, by these well-meaning idiots, right? I hate to put it that term, but they've demonized psilocybin for decades, and at the same time, legalizing all these other things that are much more harmful, or clearly harmful. Got their goods a little bit, but now that's changing, and I think that's what you're obviously onto, and the whole movement is onto, is that we need to get back to the earth. We need to get back to spirituality. We need to get back to things that make sense. And did you ever think, Eric, I'm sure you have, but did you ever think about the significance of why it is that nuclear weapons create a mushroom cloud?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I have considered that. Yes.
It's like the biggest is like, I mean, what greater message could there be?
Well, Terrence McKenna had a thing he would say, like, which mushroom is it going to be at the end of time? Is it going to be the mushroom of Watson and Hoffman, or the mushroom of Oppenheimer and whoever else invented the nuclear bombs? And like what a fucking profound thought. And as we see, like, we have creation or destruction at our fingertips, and that they are both potentially represented by the same physical structure, or looks the same. Like, that's seems more than coincidental to me.
Oh, definitely. I think it's something we have to live with. People obviously, like right now is an intense time, and the bells of war are ringing pretty loud. And the way I think about it is, and it's always going to be there. And Lao Tzu told us about that, right? He said that it's the yin and the yang. It's you can't have one without the other. The peace and the war are together, and they're inseparable. And if we can understand that and rationalize that, realize that, I think it makes it more, I don't know, or let's just say less stressful and all those kind of things, to understand that the good and the evil are going to be there. you can't have one without the other. And
Exactly.
then when we recognize that, we can make peace with it.
Mm-hmm. So true. That's something I've been thinking about a lot today. As you know, got all this hopefulness for sanctuary and the work that we're doing and psychedelics overall, and then at the same time we've got all this terrifying possibilities of, like you said, the war encroaching. And it's man, all we can do is just accept what is, and that both have to exist. As Tristan says, can we bring up identification of cubes in Europe? Identification of cubes. I don't know of anywhere that psilocybin cubensis grows wild in Europe. There are some Melanciatas over there. I think that there have been a few reports of wood lovers in Europe as well. Cyanescens. I could be wrong about that. But what Kevin brought up is the Boom Festival. I don't know, Warren, are you anywhere near when the Boom Festival is going on over there in Spain or Portugal? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't, but I'd love to know more.
Check it out. Boom Festival is a huge psychedelic music festival. It's either Portugal or Spain. I don't know. I've got a French friend who goes there pretty much every year, and that would definitely be a place to find some access points if you wanted to. But anyway, now, man, what you're saying is so true and so important for us all to consider. And I think that's one of the great values of the mushroom experience, is that it can put it all in perspective for us and help us, experience the sadness that is a part of joy, the death that is a part of life. Seth, if you heard him talking earlier about this non-dualistic perspective, it's complete fallacy to think that we can have peace without war.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. And I mean, hopefully we've got more peace than the latter. Um, and it's just I'm always reminded of Bob Marley. He talked about have no fear of atomic energy,
Mm.
and we've got to live with it. We're living human beings, right? And we have to accept the fact that we've had it pretty damn good.
Oh,
Like,
dude. Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
compared to what it was, like the uncertainty of life and the constancy of violence um, has been, more or less pronounced for eons now,
Mm.
and probably got a little comfortable in our security and our money and our material things, not knowing or maybe disregarding that the reality is that life is fleeting. And
Mm.
as Helen Keller put it, there's no security in nature. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing.
Mm.
And that daring adventure is an end in itself, right?
Mm. Dude, that's so crazy. Like, so Seth that was on here earlier, he had an experience in Jamaica where he became Socrates, like full on, like he was Socrates in this chair, just spitting wisdom. I was in Amsterdam in 2000, shortly before psilocybin mushrooms became illegal there, and did a dose of mushrooms um, not far from, uh, wasn't it Helen Keller? Wasn't it Helen Keller's house? Wasn't she? She was the blind Jew hiding from Nazi concentration camps, right? Is that right?
Um, that would be, I think you're thinking of she not blind. What's her name from forget
Are we thinking of Anne Frank and
Yeah, I think you're thinking of
Anne
Anne Frank.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah.
Anne Frank. Who is Helen Keller? Who the fuck's Helen Keller?
Helen Keller was the woman who she was deaf and blind. I don't know what else, but she learned to read Braille and kind of like
3 white people showing our ignorance around these women here. Helen Keller was an American that was deaf and blind and taught herself. I don't know. Was also a literary. I wouldn't say, I don't know. Genius. I guess if you're fucking deaf and blind and you don't know how to write, it's pretty fucking genius there. Then Anne Frank was in Amsterdam. I took mushrooms outside of Anne Frank's house and had this crazy experience of like feeling like I was there with Socrates and all these ancient wise people. Anyway, whatever. That was a wild experience. I ate mushrooms sitting on the toilet in the McDonald's of Amsterdam. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was something else. Emilio, what's up, buddy?
Hi, sorry. I heard you on the thing. I'm talking about Anne Frank and Helen Keller, and I'm like desperately screaming at the screen. I can't get in. You're listening to
I'm totally fine being wrong. I can't know everything. There's so many things I don't fucking know.
You ever listen to
Athena said mute. She was a mute. Helen Keller was mute.
Yeah, she
enlighten us, Emilio. Enlighten
us.
No.
No. He pretty Tristan beat me to it. Thank goodness. But you ever listen to a podcast and sit there and scream at it, because the people on the podcast are trying to think of something, but you're like, I
know.
Why am I listening to you guys?
Phone a friend. Yeah, you're supposed to be teaching me. Yeah.
Well, now I'm just here, so I have nothing now.
Talk to us about psilocybin.
It's been a while, actually. If I'm being honest, truth time, I've been a little bit afraid to take higher doses lately. I have no fear of a microdose, but I don't know. So much has happened. So much has happened in the last few years of my life that I recognize where it has guided me in the past, and the lessons were so hard, and I've just I've been making progress in my life through in a lot of different ways, and I don't know, I feel like I've been telling myself over and over, oh man, you're due for one, but I just haven't ever gotten around to sitting down and taking an 8 or something, and
yeah, I mean, it's a thing. You've got to set aside time, and it's something to deal with. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it's I mean, I guess taking any substance, I feel like taking any substance is indicative of how willing you are to be vulnerable at a certain point in your life, alcohol doesn't take that much to be vulnerable. It makes, because everything you take kind of makes you vulnerable in a way. And I think that I still I harbor a small fear of how vulnerable that psilocybin makes me. I want to do it. I just need to go back and do it again. It's I've done it before. You've been there before. You're but imagine, you know how you're gonna feel when you come out the other end. But for me lately, that's been something that bugs me.
Well, it's the further you get away from the bigger doses, I feel like it gets harder to go back there. Because how difficult it can be.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of my bigger trips. I have a lot of my bigger trips. I've just lost the ability to speak completely. I just don't have every time I try to form a thought, whatever I was thinking is miles away already. Just I can't form a sentence fast enough to keep up. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say I wanted to touch on this, what you brought up in saying I'm not afraid to take a microdose. And I don't know, Warren, if you have any thoughts on this as well. How much of the microdosing phenomenon, how much of the microdosing hype is people like wanting to take mushrooms but not wanting to take mushrooms? Is that a thing? What do y'all think about that?
Mushrooms are scary, man.
The fuck yeah, they are.
Like that's part of the excitement that, they're scary.
It's like Terrence McKenna said, long before microdosing was a thing, he would talk about, in psychedelic communities, how there were people who would, just take, a little bit to say that they were part of the club.
Right. Like, I've done it before.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think about that quite a bit as psychedelics and psilocybin becomes more mainstream. Psilocybin, it's like, unlike LSD, it's you can't you can microdose LSD.
You can't control psilocybin. You can control LSD, or at least that's my experience with it. I feel like you can control LSD way more. Once you get past a certain point with mushrooms, you're gone. Psilocybin has spoken.
Yes. But like, I guess what I'm saying is that, to microdose LSD is a bit more difficult. You've got to be really more measured, and you've got to know what you're doing a little bit better. But to microdose psilocybin, it's very easy to take 1/10 of a gram. You just take a little bit of a nibble, and you're like, oh, I took some microdose. And even as Kevin and I were talking, I think they're about, sometimes you take. He did, like, what was it, like 3, 8, and 12, and had this big mega trip on 12. Then he came back again and did like 5, 4, and 4. And his last 4 was more powerful than the 12-gram trip. And like the priming of the subconscious and the potential for the ripeness for the placebo effect to be so present. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of hype around microdosing, and it's very difficult to really tell if it's actually doing anything. So, Warren, you said you've been microdosing, and I'm curious as if, do you think that's like fully the mushroom, or do you think like maybe I'm just like imagining that I feel better, or what do you think?
I think it's a great question. Alluding back to Lao Tzu for a minute, I think one of the guiding principles of my life, and I just think it's such a great one potentially for everybody, is the concept of the middle way. Aristotle put it a different way. He called the same thing, he called it the golden mean, which both of the concepts are not necessarily a mathematical like center where you can just easily achieve some sort of higher state, but it's kind of relative. And I think that the same concept applies with microdosing or macrodosing, or where you want to put it. It's achieving that golden mean. So like, to elaborate on what Aristotle said, the mean, of course, is the mathematical center between two mathematical numbers, right? Mm-hmm. He never said that it was an exact mathematical mean. What he said was the golden mean. It's golden, baby. That it's this higher good that it lays somewhere in between. You try to put your finger on it, and it's probably going to be elusive. Mm-hmm. Lao Tzu put it in the same way, the same kind of terms, is that the concept of the middle way. It's a higher ideal, and it's not fixed. It's ever changing, and I think you're right when people talk about like microdosing to the extent of it's not going to have any real effect. I'm just going to like think that I can take, eat some mushrooms or like a super small dose of mushrooms, and it's going to do something. That's on one extreme. If they think it's doing something, okay, more power to you. Mm-hmm. But for me, you need to feel something, right? You need to have some sort of measurable, or measurable, that's a bad word to put it, some sort of detectable spiritual feeling or experience that is going to be somewhere on that medium between taking something that is going to have no effect and taking an amount that's going to make you lose your mind, at least for a while, right? And to me, so I would characterize micro as, on the sort of small introductory side of things, yet still having a noticeable, somewhat spiritual effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know that when I take, like, when we did that hike, did a 0.25 of the ovoids, and I definitely felt it and felt more connected and had, this kind of, I don't know, just a spiritual experience, if you will. It's the, like the 0.10 grams every other day kind of thing. And again, like, I'm not saying it doesn't have benefit and that there's not power to it. And, there's probably a certain amount of this is just kind of my own personal gripe with pop culture, trying to, like, take something that is terrifying, like Emilio said. I mean, like, to really take mushrooms and dive into them, it feels like a big risk. It's not really as big a risk as we feel going into it, but it feels like it. And so to take something like that and just, like, I don't know, kind of play with it, like, all of a sudden, like all the microdosing coaching programs and microdosing workshops and microdosing experts, it just drives me a little fucking nuts, honestly. I'm not gonna lie, because, like, yeah, how necessary is that?
People take it like a vitamin.
It's like a supplement,
like a vitamin. Yeah, it's a supplement.
Well, I mean, and then sell themselves as experts on microdosing.
I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's only so many different combinations of, like, ways and paces that you can take. Like like keeping a schedule for microdosing. Like taking a point, like a 1 gram every other day is something I'd never heard of. I'd always heard of it like
0.1 grams.
Oh, whoa, that's way okay. Sorry, I misheard. That's a very small dose. I thought it was like you took about what we took on the hike, like a 0.3, like 0.3, and you take it like for, was it 2 days, and then on the 3rd day it's off, and then you come back and just do the same dose like that. Like that's what I've heard. I don't know. I guess there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I guess that's why I need a microdosing coach. So I need to hire.
Yeah, how do I do this properly? How do I take just enough mushrooms that I don't feel anything properly?
I don't know. I mean, like, who's to say, like, what's proper, right? Like, I mean,
I'm just playing.
I feel you. I mean, yeah, but, like, because I feel like I feel like I'm more of like you said, a connection with, like, nature. Being out and hiking on a microdose is nice, because you still feel like I feel like a superhuman, like I feel like I'm more tactile and I can balance better. But, like, if you were to ask me to, like, file stuff or do, like, I couldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, but I can do other things. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm fairly social still when I take a microdose, personally, me. But like, taking a bigger doses, I can't sometimes I can't physically move anymore. Like, I have to, like, to sit down, or, like, I have to feel the ground underneath me, like, grab a hold of it sometimes. So.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, kind of like on this microdosing discussion with Warren while we still had him, you know, something that was touched on earlier is like LSD is people that want to microdose it. You're dealing with an array of the strength and the potency of what's actually on this blotted paper, where you got it from, like who actually synthesized all this stuff, and then like the technicality of actually slicing up this small piece of material into something large enough to where you would know, like, I've got it in 8 pieces or 10 pieces. Like, it's probably not going to happen. But within the microdosing argument, you do see people talking about using it in completely different ways. Like, you'll see 3 weeks on, 1 week off. You'll see 2 days on, 1 day off. You'll see multiple doses a day. But I think that for people, you know, not a doctor, really need to preface that, you know, this is not a medical like event. But
in fact, we're not encouraging anyone to do anything illegal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm an idiot.
But I mean, based on the studies, I would say that like you could say that for people within a certain age range, that there's the theoretical possibility that they would prevent neurodegenerative diseases and some of this stuff. So, you know, not a doctor, but I also think that it helps in kind of setting your intentions. I think that if I was to ever come to microdosing in the future, kind of like the morning meditation and setting my intentions and check back in with myself as to why I'm participating with this, with the mushroom the way that I am. I don't know, kind of like check in. I don't know. Just want to throw that in there. See what Warren thought.
Here's the deal. Like, I shit on microdosing a lot. I'm like, microdosing, no skin in the game. And so just kind of an easy out. And then I'll take a 10th or a 20th of a gram. And I'm like, oh, damn, I feel great. Microdosing is the shit. So whether or not it's just my mind, whether it's placebo or whatever, I think you're completely right, Tristan, that if we're consuming a substance that is a neurogenerative, no matter how small of a quantity, it's good for us. The hang up that I really have is in the kind of the culture that has built around microdosing in all of these experts that are going to tell you what is your protocol. People ask me like, well, what's your microdosing protocol, Eric? I'm like, you know, I don't know. Some people say every 2 days. Some people say whatever. Like, there's all kinds of different ways. So like for something like that, you could probably, I'd say definitely take a 10th of a gram every freaking day for the rest of your life, and it would be good for you.
Yeah, I feel like it sounds like it's like lion's mane. Just take that along with anything else. You might take it like, just smaller doses.
I did talk to a guy that did a gram a day for, I think he said 30 days. I'm pretty sure he said it was 30 days. He did a gram a day for 30 days. And he swears that his voice changed, that he, like, by like day 20, he was just like his old self again. So I don't know. It's all the verdict's out. There's so much that we have to learn. That's one of the things about, you know, psilocybin being illegal for as long as it has been. We have so little real practical working knowledge. And then it is something that is so variable from experience to experience, from person to person, from day to day. The variables that are go into the equation are just really hard to keep up with. So anyway, it is 8:34. I'm going to cut this off. It's been really a wonderful conversation. Hopefully you all have learned how little I know, and we will come back next Monday to prove again that Eric doesn't know what he's talking about, but he sure does love talking about mushrooms. So thank you all for joining. Tristan, thank you for your help. Anybody and everybody that was listening or a part of this, thank you so much. It's been fun, and look forward to the next time.